Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. Welcome to the 12th session of our course Yoga and Positive Psychology for Managing Career and Life. In this session, we are going to discuss the means to surpass the obstacles on the way of attaining well-being. And as the nature of this course is, we are going to examine this question from the yogic perspective. In the last session, we discussed about how our mind works, because that is the prerequisite to understand the ways of attaining happiness and experiencing well-being in life. So, we discussed about how mind works, we discussed about the vrittis, precisely the 5 vrittis or mind modifications explained in the yogic tradition. We also looked at how these mind modifications can be klishta and aklishta, can be cause of suffering or may not be cause of suffering. We also looked at what are the major impediments, what are the major obstacles in attaining well-being in the form of different viparyas. We also discussed 6 viparyas or viparya, which are the major obstacles in achieving well-being. Those are avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh and abhinivesh. We discussed the nature of these obstacles, and we also tried to reflect on our own life as we experience at workplace, with our friends or in family, how these viparyas are causing unrest or causing suffering in our life. Today, we are going to discuss how to avoid these klisht vrittis. So, Yoga Sutra suggests that precisely 2 ways are there to avoid the vrittis to get klisht or to make mind modification becoming cause of suffering. What are those 2 things? Those 2 things are abhyas and vairagya. Abhyas vairagyabhyam tan nirodha, that can be obstructed, that can be removed. What? Suffering or klisht vrittis can be removed through abhyas and vairagya. Abhyas is practice, constant practice, regular practice, being regular and continuous in our practice, that is abhyas. And vairagya is non-attachment to things which obstruct in the practice. So, abhyas is the term which is very much applicable, and probably all of us can understand if we look at music, sports, studies, technology, entrepreneurship, any walks of life. It requires practice. In fact, there are certain professions where professional activity itself is called practice, practice of law or practice of medicine, etc. So, practice means regularly and continuously working on something. If it is yoga, then in the yoga it is said that there are no holidays, and not that if you have started practicing the yoga, there will be holidays on Sundays or gadget holidays, etc. No, we need to practice regularly. even if on some days we are not able to do the full practice, but some short practice must be conducted, must be performed, and that must be continuously done. So, abhyas is the first thing, and second thing is vairagya. Vairagya means detachment. Vairagya is opposite to rag. You remember rag and dvesh? It is opposite to rag as well as opposite to dvesh. It is about ability to detach from any vishayas, any sensuous pleasure, or ability to detach from any psychological gratification, any ability to get detached with our asmita, our ability to get detached from our ignorance. Actually, ability to get detached with our set theories and ideas is also part of vairagya. Vairagya meaning I am aware to examine things as they are. Vairagya meaning my purpose in life is well-being, integral harmony, career success, or maybe samadhi, as that is the ultimate objective of yoga. In the process of attaining that objective, which is niti sangat and dharma sangat, in order to achieve that objective, if I have to detach from something, if I have to detach from any sensuous pleasure or emotional connect, or if I have to get rid of my aversion for certain things, but or some people, but if that is required for well-being, that is required for the dharmic purpose, I am willing to let go my preconceived notion and attachment. Abhyas and vairagya can be also defined in terms of extrinsic effort and intrinsic effort. Abhyas is pretty visible outside. You wake up at the right time, you take the right food, you take the appropriate amount of food at appropriate time, you practice regularly, all that is validated externally. So, abhyas is the practice or effort which is visible externally. Vairagya is more intrinsic situation. Vairagya is more intrinsic effort, and when vairagya happens, external practices start happening naturally. They does not require much of effort. As per the Vyas commentary, we have mentioned about the Vyasa Bhashya of the Yoga Sutra. The Vyas commentary says that mind is like river which flows into riverine. Chitta Nadi, that is the term used in the Vyasa Bhashya of the Yoga Sutra, and Chitta Nadi, Nadi meaning river, Chitta meaning mind. So, mind is like river which has two dharas, two riverine. One riverine flows in the direction of welfare, and that is the true welfare, that is samadhi or well-being. Other riverine flows towards suffering. The importance of abhyas and vairagya is to direct the chitta nadi, direct the river of this mind towards welfare and well-being. These are the two principles. These two principles are also very well recognized and explained in the Bhagavad Gita by Bhagavan Krishna to the Arjun, when Arjun asked that it is very difficult to control our mind. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna, that is what Arjun says. Bhagavad Gita says, Shri Krishna says that yes, it is correct that manam is chanchal, man is chanchal. Yes, the mind happens to be, by its nature is fluctuating, but it can be controlled through abhyas and vairagya. So, Bhagavad Gita talks also about, Bhagavad Gita also mentions about these two things. But the next question is, how I practice abhyas and vairagya? What is the meaning of abhyas and vairagya in more behavioral terms, more in terms of my emotions, more in terms of my mental states. So, the question is, what kind of mental states are required for us to remain established in abhyas and vairagya. These mental states are called upayas, means, and that is why the title of this session is means of attaining well-being. These upayas or these upayas are 5: Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pragya. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pragya Purvak Itiresham. Shraddha is belief in with the reverence in tap, dan, yajna. Tap means rigor. Whatever we pursue in life, whatever we want to attain in life, that requires rigor. Art gets reformed with rigor, science gets reformed with rigor, our psychomotor other abilities reflected in the sports, these things also get reformed with rigor. So, tap is the first aspect. Tapo moolam hi sadhanam. Sadhanam means, tap is rigor. Whatever we wish to achieve, rigorous effort is needed. Dan, our willingness and our act of sharing the wealth and helping others, that is dan. And yajna, yajna is working for the world maintenance, working for maintaining the universal order. We need to have reverence in tap, dan and yajna, that is called Shraddha. In the Vyasa Bhashya, it is called Chetasah Samprasadah. Samprasadah, Chetasa means consciousness, Samprasadah, the serenity of mind. So, Shraddha is a kind of serenity of mind, where reverine which flows towards welfare is flown naturally. When there is less effort, less struggle, that less struggle happens when we generate the mental state of reverence towards tap, dan and yajna. That is why in very popular shlok it is said that Jagatah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau. Parvati and Parameshwar are considered as the parent of the world. Jagatah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau Bhavani Shankarau Vande, the same, the Bhavani and who is the consort of Shiva or Shankar, one Shraddha Vishwasa Rupinau. Shiv is considered as symbol of Vishwas, faith, and Bhavani or Parvati is considered a symbol of Shraddha. So, that is why Bhavani Shankarau Vande Shraddha Vishwas Rupinau. Shraddha is like a motherly characteristic of all other mental tendencies. When we have Shraddha for the tap, dan and yajna, it becomes a nurturant to all what we wish to achieve through the mental power. All other mental tendencies are taken care of when we have Shraddha. Like avidya is the field of klishta vrittis or suffering, in the same way Shraddha is the field or the ground for the positive vrittis or ways of developing or inculcating those mental modifications or mind stuff which result into welfare, which results into well-being. You can study more about Shraddha in a very interesting work carried out by Professor Dharam P. Bhavuk, and in the dharmawiki.org website there is a separate page on Shraddha. We know that Dharmawiki website contains lot of these concepts in much more detail, so you can refer this website as your notes in this field. So, Shraddha is the basis of or the field of the positive mind stuff, positive modifications of the mind. When we have Shraddha, our efforts have energy. We need to actually make energetic efforts, and that is why for some people yoga impact very quickly, but for some people it requires long time to show up the effort. Virya meaning energetic effort, that means we are following abhyas and vairagya with more intensity, with more commitment. When the energetic efforts are made, the impact of yoga, whatever aspect of yoga we choose, yam, niyam, asana, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, whatever efforts we are making, whatever the yogang we are practicing, with the virya, with the energetic effort, its impact on our life, its impact on our well-being grows multifold. And virya leads to mindfulness. When we have virya, means when we make conscious mental effort with optimum intensity, we remain aware of what is needs to be done, what thoughts we can inculcate, what kind of thoughts we need to nurture. We actually become custodian of our own mind states. We become conscious of which thoughts have to be entertained in the mind, which thought should not be nurtured or entertained in the mind. That is Smriti. In the modern times, it is very close to what in the modern literature is studied as mindfulness. So, mindfulness or samyak dhyan and samyak gyan, that is the Buddhist tradition teaches us. The translation of that is mindfulness, currently popular in the Western literature. Mindfulness is remaining aware of, being in a non-judgmental state, being in the observation state, and being in the observation is not observation of the act, but observation about our mental fluctuations, mind, the modifications of the mind stuff. That is Smriti. When we have sufficient intensity of Smriti, it results into Samadhi, concentration. That is Asampragyat Samadhi, as discussed in the Yoga Sutra, and we will discuss that. But for the normal vyavharik understanding, Samadhi means equanimity of mind. Samadhi, sam means equanimous, dhi meaning intellect or buddhi. That equanimity in mind is achieved with the mindfulness or Smriti. When we have equanimity in mind, we are able to see things as they are. We are not distorted by our judgments, our prejudices, or our rag and dvesh. When our mind and our intellect is not prejudiced by rag or dvesh, which is not judgmental, which is available to observe things and situations and people as they are, then pragya or wisdom originates. So, what are the upayas? Upayas are Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi and Pragya. If you see, all these 5 things are actually progressively developmental. This is a psychological, it is a progressive psychological development framework, where one thing, one quality leads to the next, then next, and as we move from one quality to the next, things become clearer to our mind, and as things become clearer to our mind, we become yogastha and we also become swastha. So, what is the meaning of swastha? Swastha is being established in self. Swa means self, sthit means established. We become established in self, we attain swasthya. Swasthya is nothing but wellness or well-being, and that requires an effort that requires Shraddha, Veer, Smriti, Samadhi, Pragya, and that is reflected in our mental state, that also is reflected in our vyavahar, in our behavior, and also in our situation of our body. We attain well-being at the psychosomatic level through these upaya. Let us look at how positive psychology looks at the notion of upayas or notion of the power of agency, the individual mental resources which are at the foundation of well-being and also performance, the right performance in organizations and society. So, in the positive psychology, we come across these terms of economic capital, human capital, social capital and psychological capital. We all were aware of the traditional economic capital, and organizations were working to gain economic capital, that is reflected in the form of finance, tangible assets like equipment, patents, etc. But gradually organizations recognized that it is not only economic capital which guarantee the organizational growth or even sustenance. So, we had to move from traditional economic capital to human capital. Human capital means human being who are able to, who actually convert capital into the productive means. You can have lot of capital, but you need human being to convert that capital into the productive output in the form of product or services. So, human capital we consider experience, education, skill, knowledge, ideas. These are not possessed by computers, this is not possessed by technology. Technology is inert, technology can be very advanced, but it is the human being, the human capital which employ that technology in the most appropriate way. So, we became aware of the human capital. Then there is a social capital. Social capital means we recognized that in organizations human capital do not directly result into economic capital. Human experience, education, skill, knowledge, ideas do not naturally, obviously in a straightforward manner result into economic capital or economic value creation, until that human capital is supported by social capital. Until human beings who are working in society or in organization have positive relationship, until they feel connected, until they are not connected with each other, until they do not work as network and do not work as atomistic units, human capital will not result into economic value. So, social capital was recognized to be very important, and social capital is the network of contacts. It is through the network of contacts and relationships and friendship human capital result into economic capital. But human capital is not only exterior thing, it is not only about experience or education, it is also about psychological capital. Until human beings are functioning well at psychological level, social capital will not be formed, and naturally if social capital is not formed, economic capital will also not get enhanced and economic value addition will also not happen. So, psychological capital was identified to be very important aspect, rather foundational requirement for generation of social capital, human capital and economic capital. Luthans is a great scholar with his colleague Ave and others, they have developed this body of knowledge. Psychological capital has got 4 components. We can remember this these 4 components with the acronym HERO. H for hope, E for efficacy, R for resilience and O for optimism. Hope meaning perceiving forward goals, being positive about attainability of the objectives. Efficacy or self-efficacy meaning a kind of faith or confidence in our capability and the capability of the mentors and with whom we are working. So, it is a self-efficacy. R is for resiliency. Resiliency meaning sustaining and bouncing back. Sustaining the effort, sometime effort may not result in the desired outcome. Even in that situation, bouncing back, continuously coming back to the track, coming back to putting in effort towards the valued goals, that is resiliency. And optimism, being hopeful, making positive attributions to situations, to people, to the goals. These four things constitute the psychological capital. We need to see that psychological capital, social capital, human capital are deeply connected with the economic value addition or economic capital. Our Vedic tradition and Vedantic tradition also talks about some treasures. They do not use word punji, they use sampatti. That sampatti is called Shat sampatti. Shat means 6, treasures are sampatti. These are mentioned in the Tattva Bodh. It is a very precise work of Adi Shankaracharya. In fact, this is so straightforward that anyone can pick it up. It is a small text, but it gives immense clarity about how to achieve the objectives, the positive objectives in life. It is written for the Adhyatmic purpose. Adhyatmic purpose is attaining Brahman, because Adi Shankaracharya was Vedanti. So, Atma Sakshatkar, recognizing that I am the Brahma, is the ultimate objective for the Adi Shankaracharya. He was the Acharya of Vedanta, of Advaita Vedanta rather. So, he was the Acharya of Advaita Vedanta. So, this text is aimed at the superordinate goal of attaining self realization, Atma Sakshatkar, and Atma is not different from Brahma. So, that is why Atma Sakshatkar according to the Advaitic tradition is also Brahma Gyan, and for that 4 elements are defined: Vivek, Vairagya, Shata Sampatti and Mumukshhatva. Vivek is discrimination of right and wrong. Vairagya, as mentioned earlier, it is getting rid of your personal rag and dvesh and non-attachment to the Vishayas, non-attachment to the pleasures if they are obstructing our efforts to attaining the ultimate objective. Shata Sampatti we are going to discuss now, and Mumukshatva, our urge to get the spiritual awakening. So, this text is very relevant, and in fact that is its ultimate purpose, to get the self realization. But this text and these 4 things are also equally useful in the Vyavaharik life, in the day to day life, in the life of economic transactions, relationships, community building, nation building. In all these Vyavaharik pursuits as well, these 6 or these 4 Chatushtay or these quadrates or the 6 treasures or Shata Sampatti, one of the quadrates, are equally important. So, that is why we can include this thing in the positive psychology. We all know that our objective is not ultimate spiritual realization in this course. Our objective is to attain well-being, and for attaining well-being it may be called Vyavaharik objective, but for the Vyavaharik objective as well, this Shata Sampatti is very relevant. What is this Shata Sampatti? And you can later on compare the Shata Sampatti with the psychological capital. We can have some discussion on the commonality and difference in the psychological capital and Shata Sampatti. So, what is the first Sampatti? The first virtue or first treasure is Sama, quietude of mind, calmness of mind. This refers to also control of mind. until we control the mind, we cannot control senses, and that is why it is called Mano Nigraha. Sam kah, that is the question in the text, Mano Nigraha, one word answer given by Adi Shankaracharya. Until mind is quiet, we cannot see through things. What is right, what is wrong, what is good for well-being, what is preyas, what is shreyas, what is abhyuday, what is nishreyas, all that discrimination, all that understanding can come only to a calm mind. An agitated mind cannot distinguish what is right and wrong. So, the first sampatti, first treasure is to calm down our mind, our ability to calm our mind. So, you can see these are processes as well as outcome. These are also mental states and also verbs. They indicate some verbs as well which are important to achieve that mental state. So, first is shama, controlling of mind. Then second one is dhamma, that is self restraint, and self restraint is used in terms of restraint of our senses. Chakshuradi, chakshu adi, chakshu means netra, adi means netra adi, netra etc. What comes in the etc? All five senses, the five senses of eye, ear, touch, taste, these are all senses. Chakshuradi, bahindriya nigraha, external senses and sense organs have to be controlled. That is second treasure, that is dhamma. When we are able to do mano nigraha and indriya nigraha, that is the meaning of dhamma, we are able to see what we should be doing. Someone should be doing art, someone is more tuned for science, someone is more tuned for business, someone is more tuned for economics, someone is more tuned for entrepreneurship, someone is more tuned for academics. We all are having our swadharma, we all are having our aptitude. That aptitude may change. We may have multiple aptitudes. Someone who is good at technology can also be good at teaching. So, that also is possible, but important thing is knowing what is my aptitude. I want to make difference to my life, I wish to achieve well-being, but I have to achieve well-being, and I can achieve well-being only by working according to my aptitude. If I start working for some others' aptitude, if I get enamored, suppose my capability is of technology and entrepreneurship, I get enamored by the life of an academics or someone who teaches in IIT. My aptitude is something, if I get enamored by something else, I may not be able to pursue this which is my aptitude, I may not be able to get that with which I am getting enamored. I may get enamored by the entertainment industry's heroes. I might be a scientist, entertainment industry make lot of heroes, they enjoy a lot of public attention, but if that is not my aptitude, why I should get enamored for that, enamored by that? I may enjoy that their public attention, I may enjoy watching them, but it does not mean that we should get dragged to get that kind of attention in our life as well. Why? Because we will not be able to achieve what which we are capable of achieving without identifying our aptitude, without identifying our swadharma. Every object in the life, every objective of the world has its own quality and has its own dharma. The dharma of fire is to generate heat, dharma of water is to flow, water cannot become fire. Similarly, space cannot become air, air has its own dharma, vayu has its own dharma, that is force, that is flowing. Akash has a dharma of being, just being, and from there everything else emanates. So, like all the natural elements, human beings also have their swadharma. Most of the animals and other creatures in the nature are mostly programmed. They have some intellect, they have some discretion, but that range of discretion is much lesser in comparison to the range of discretion human beings have. Human beings have that intellect, that power, and because of that they are not fully programmed by nature. They have the power of will, they have a sense of agency, and that sense of agency is much stronger in comparison to other natural organisms. And that is why human beings have to apply vivek, that is why human beings have to apply discrimination, they have to do tapa, they have to do reflection to discover their dharma. That is called swadharma. When I am established in swadharma, I do not feel tired. When I am doing what is my true aptitude is, I do not feel tired. And if I discover that swadharma will always be in harmony with the world. That is my way of contributing to the world. In this world, all the creatures, all the organisms, all type of organism have something to contribute. Other creatures are mostly programmed by nature. I am saying mostly in a conscious way, because there are some intelligent animals as well, intelligent organism whom we call animal. Elephant has a certain type of intelligence, dolphins have certain level of intelligence which is more than other natural creatures. So, but they also have a discrimination in a limited range. Human beings have much wider range, and that is why they need to apply the power of discrimination. With the discrimination, with the vivek, with the sum and dam, they recognize their swadharma. You recognize the swadharma and remain stable in that, remain established in that. Do not get enamored by other person's aptitude. Do not try to become someone else. That is satiety, that is appreciation for taking one step forward in the direction of my swadharma. That is uparati, that is a third inner treasure. So, in the process of pursuing our swadharma or following our swadharma, we may not be able to achieve the desirable outcome all the time. We can face challenges, we may face difficulty. In those difficulty, we need to consciously practice the equanimity. That is the power of endurance. We need to be endure. We need to endure on what is my swadharma. Constant balance of mind during pleasure, pain, heat and cold. Instead of seeing experiences happening to us, we need to see them happening for us. I may face some situation. In that difficult situation, I can assume that why I have put into this difficulty, or I may say that okay, I am in that difficulty, and difficulty also has a role for me to grow as an executive, as a student, as a human being. So, Adi Shankaracharya says that Sitoshna Sukh Dukkhadi Sahishnutvam. There will be sheet and ushna, there will be the heat and cold in our life. Being sahishnu about it, being open for that, being equanimous in that, recognizing that whatever we do, our action and the outcome, these are not directly linked. They are mediated or moderated by many other things, like what is the objective with which I have pursued my work, what are the situations, whether the luck favored me or not. So, our effort may not necessarily result into desirable outcome. In those moments, recognizing that effort and outcome are mediated by many different things, situations, or the very mindset with which we put in our effort, or what is the readiness of the world, what are the other factors, social, economic and natural factors, which are influencing the outcome of my work. In the modern psychology, in the positive psychology, it is called resilience. We are going to discuss that in a short while from now. Then Shraddha. Shraddha is the upaya that we looked at in the Yoga Sutra, that is given in the Yoga Sutra. Shraddha is also identified as the six inner treasure or the Shata Sampatti by Adi Shankaracharya. So, we can say that Maharshi Patanjali and Adi Shankaracharya, two of the most brightest minds this Bharatiya culture has seen. If both of them are talking about one thing, that is Shraddha, then it must be very important and very valuable to inculcate the Shraddha. Shraddha is, as we told, it is commitment for tapa, jnana, dan and yajna. Then comes samadhan, chittaikagrata, that is what Adi Shankaracharya says this. Balanced state of mind and steadfastness, means remaining focused. That remaining focus give results in the medium term or long term. These are the six treasures of our mind. We need to keep remind ourselves. If I need to practice and I need to have detachment, if I have to have abhyas and vairagya, because these are the essential things. This is essential because mind has the tendency to go towards prayers, go towards that which looks pleasurable in the beginning, but causes suffering in the long run. Mind has that tendency because of our sanskar, because of the vyadhi, because of our other fluctuations or entanglements or the fluctuations all around us. Because of so many reasons, mind has that tendency of moving towards prayers. If we wish to remain on the path of Shreyas, if we wish to remain on the path of well-being, we need to constantly remind ourselves about these six treasures, and we need to use these six treasures for that. If we want to have good body, we need all these things. If we want to have good mind, we need all these things. If we want professional success, we need all these things. If we want success in our career or business or sports, we want these six treasures. We have to have these treasures in our life. You might see some of the people might be getting indulged in something or other and still being successful. Please be mindful that in the long run, that certainly the indulgence, which is undue indulgence, certainly causes hurt, certainly causes suffering. Now, we can actually compare how the Shata Sampatti can be compared with the positive psychology concept of psychological capital. Psychological capital talks about hope, resilience, efficacy and optimism. The Shata Sampatti also talks about titiksha, that is resilience. Shata Sampatti talks about ekagrata, it talks about shraddha. So, let us compare psychological capital and Shata Sampatti. Psychological capital, as mentioned earlier, it is the combination of hope, optimism, efficacy and resilience. You see, resilience of the psychological capital is reflected in the form of titiksha in the Shata Sampatti. Efficacy is also somewhere captured in a partial way in the Uparati. So, Uparati and titiksha has significant commonality between efficacy and resilience. What is not there in the Shata Sampatti is hope and optimism, and what else in place of hope and optimism we get in the Shata Sampatti. We get what are the intrinsic psychological instrument through which we can attain success. Sham, Dam, Shraddha and Samadhan. These are the psychological states. These are the efforts. Optimism and hope, which is part of the psychological capital, is about being positive towards attaining the goal. So, there is a attachment towards goal, and there is an attachment in the hope and optimism towards desirable outcome. We are hopeful not for undesirable outcome, we are hopeful only towards desirable outcome. So, desirable outcome is the underneath of hope and optimism, whereas in Shata Sampatti it talks about Swadharma, it talks about efficacy. So, efficacy as well as optimism for right purpose, that is captured in Uparati, but there are 4 other things which prepare us to pursue that path. In the psychological capital, there is nothing which prepares our mind to pursue this path. How we can remain hopeful, how we can develop resilience, how we can develop efficacy, that answer is not coming from the variables captured in the psychological capital, but that answer is coming from these 6 variables. These 6 variables talk about what is to be pursued, and that is captured in the Uparati. How it should be pursued, that is captured in Titiksha, and how I can prepare myself to identify what is to be pursued, and how I should prepare my mind to remain on that path. These questions are also answered in the 6th treasure or Shata Sampatti. So, this can be a construct, this can be a concept which is probably much wider and much deeper than the psychological capital. Those who are interested in psychology, those who are interested in organization behavior can pursue this research on these 6 treasures, and that also can be done, but most of us are taking this course for our own self development. We need to remember these things. We cannot hope to attain well-being without Sam, Dam, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha and Samadhan. How I develop that? I develop that through practice. What to practice? That practice is Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, and to some extent Pratyahara. In the normal life, we need to be just aware about these 5 things. If we can follow these 5 practices, gradually we can put in more and more intensity in that practice, well-being is bound to increase. And how we remain into that practice, we need to remember these things, and we need to consciously develop these treasures. The good thing about these treasure is that it is not fixed. It is not that somebody has got the limited quota. We all can, by just giving attention to these things, just by being mindful to these things, we can enhance this treasure. So, Indian traditional wisdom gives lot of beautiful concepts which are very positive in nature. So, we can say these are the positive psychological construct in the Indian wisdom tradition, and most of the time these concepts are presented in very interesting stories. So, this story is about Dharma getting married to the 13 daughters of Daksha Prajapati. Daksha Prajapati is the one who is the one who created this world. So, that power of the Brahman which created this world. So, Dharma married to the 13 daughters, and these who are the 13 daughters? These are Shraddha, Maitri, etc. all these daughters are reflection of the positive qualities. So, Shraddha we have already discussed. These daughters then further give birth to son or daughters. So, that is how the whole dharma family comes into existence, and this dharma family is the excellent combination of multiple positive constructs defined in the Indian traditional wisdom. Shraddha we discussed in the previous slide. Shraddha gives birth to Shubha. Shubha is the name of the deity who causes wellness and who kills the demons. Maitri, Maitri means, worldly meaning is friendliness. Friendliness result into prasad, that is propitiation, happiness and satisfaction. Daya, meaning of daya is compassion. The compassion has the son called Abhaya. When I have compassion for others, I develop the fearlessness towards the world. Shanti is the another daughter, Shanti meaning peace. When peace marries and give birth to a son with dharma, that son is called Sukha, that is sattvic pleasure, that is a positive pleasure. Tushti meaning nurturing, and Tushti gives us more sensuous pleasure, that is Mod, and Unnati is another daughter. The Unnati meaning progress, and with the progress in the physical world, it gives birth to Darpa, that is arrogance. Buddhi is intellect, that is another daughter. Buddhi and dharma result into artha, that is material wealth. Medha, that is more refined intellect. When more refined intellect marries dharma, it gives birth to a daughter called Sukriti, auspicious activities. Titiksha we already discussed. Titiksha is another wife of dharma. She gives birth to Shama, that is equanimity, that is the name of his son Shama. So, and similarly Ri gives birth to Prashraya or courtesy or politeness. So, we can see that this dharma tree is the combination of many related and positive psychological constructs given in the traditional wisdom. The dharma tree is also commonly used heuristic in the Buddhist literature. In the Buddhism, dharma tree is the tree which reflects many acharyas, many enlightened masters arranged in certain order. Let us look at how these 6 treasures are relevant for our career, because managing self and managing career both are equally important and both are part of this course. Shama is reflection of emotional intelligence, being aware of the mind fluctuation, controlling of the mind, controlling of the emotion, being aware and managing emotion for self and other. And emotional intelligence is found to be as important as IQ for the professional success. Dam is discipline. You remember energy focus matrix. Until we have dam, we cannot remain focused on the task and we cannot follow the timetable. Time management requires discipline. Just by managing Google Calendar, we cannot manage time. That discipline can come only with dam. Shraddha. Shraddha is reverence for the tapa, gyan, yajna, following the norms. There are safety norms, there are other processes in the lean or in Six Sigma, we have to follow certain norms. We need to have reverence for those norms. These norms are for the well-being of the profession, well-being of the organization. That is also Shraddha, and that is very important for organizational success and personal career success. Resilience is another name for Titiksha. Resilience at individual level and organizational level, both are important, and there is a vast body of literature which talks about resilient organizations and resilience in the executives. Uparati, recognition of the effort, recognizing what I am good at and pursuing that when I am pursuing that which I am good at, I can celebrate even the small wins. That is important for professional success. If I keep changing my profession from one direction to another, I cannot hope to be successful. So, I need to have operati, I need to find out what is my aptitude, what I am good at, what is my swadharma reflected in profession, and that is the foundation for the career success. Then comes samadhan. After finding out your true calling, after recognizing what is my aptitude, following the shraddha, following the dhamma, we develop something, we build something, we are able to achieve something that may or may not be as per our ambition. Accepting that and still remaining on that path, that is samadhan. So, we can see that all these shata sampatti are equally important in the career success as well, and there is a vast existing body of literature which is talking about these qualities. I end this session with 3 examples. These are examples of epitome of professional success in diverse field, and you can see that these people became successful with some or other of these shata sampatti. Actually, all these sampattis are connected, and these are reflected in the successful personalities. My first example is Ronaldo. We all know that he was born, he was in a family in the Portugal which was not the family of a very wealthy people. His father was a gardener and his mother was a cleaner, and regardless of lack of means, he went to a club and he practiced very hard. Even today he practices very hard. Studies have pointed out that Ronaldo can jump as much as a meter, and his jumping ability is higher than that of ordinary basketball player who play for NBA. Even in the hotel rooms of training camp, others might be resting, but he is following his sit-up practices, and he invariably gives 4 hours for his training, 100 push-ups, regardless of wind and rain. His regimen is, he follows that regimen. We can see that Dhamma and Titiksha are so very treasures in the Ronaldo's personality. Another example of Narayana, another example is G. Narayana ji, is also called Guruji. He is a chairman emeritus of Excel Industries Limited, he is a chairman and director of several companies. He is a mentor, contributor, educator, trainer in management. He is mentor to several chief executives, lecturers, students, corporates. In his story in the famous book Leading with Wisdom, he mentions about importance of Shama. After a major business loss, he went for self reflection. He deliberately got into the spiritual sadhana to quieten his mind, to bring calmness in his mind, and arising from that calmness was his life goal. He was able to find his swadharma, he able to chalk out his path when he experienced Shama after major turmoil, after major business loss, and after that he became so famous and became so revered and respectful in the corporate world in India. Third example is of Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia. He also practices, so he has this quality of operati, he has this quality of titiksha, he has this quality of samadhan, ekagrata. And when he says that we need to remain in sadhana, at one place he says that most stay for more than 5 years about his students. He also says that practicing is not just about holding an instrument and playing it. It is about constantly thinking about music. What am I going to perform? How to make it more beautiful when I perform next time? How do I perform last time? How can I make it better this time? Constantly thinking about it. So, we can see these 3 examples how the Shata Sampatti can be the foundation for Vyavharik success, the career success as well. And these are the ways of attaining well-being, These are the ways of surpassing the obstacles on the path of well-being.